The busy halls of Chicago General Hospital echoed with the usual sounds of a Monday morning. Jasmine Bennett, a 28-year-old physical therapist, rushed through the corridor with her natural curls bouncing and her white coat flowing behind her. She was running late for her first patient of the day, something that rarely happened to her. "I'm so sorry I'm late," she called out as she entered room 305, her eyes fixed on the medical chart in her hands. The traffic was terrible this morning and her voice trailed off as she looked up and met the warmest brown eyes she had ever seen. Sitting in a wheelchair by the window was Marcus Thompson, a 32-year-old man with a smile that could light up the entire room. Despite being in a hospital gown, he carried himself with dignity and confidence that Jasmine rarely saw in her patients. "No worries," Marcus said with a gentle laugh. "I've been entertaining myself by watching the pigeons have a serious argument on the windowsill." He pointed outside, where indeed, two pigeons seemed to be in an animated dispute over a small piece of bread. Jasmine couldn't help but laugh. Most patients she met were understandably depressed or angry about their conditions, but Marcus was different. His medical chart showed he had been in a car accident 6 months ago, which had affected his ability to walk. "Well, Mr. Thompson," Jasmine said, trying to maintain her professional composure despite finding herself oddly drawn to his cheerful demeanor, "I'll be your physical therapist for the next few months. We'll be working together 3 times a week." "Please call me Marcus," he replied, wheeling his chair closer to her. "Mr. Thompson is my father, and he's much grumpier than I am." As they began their first session, Jasmine was impressed by Marcus's determination. Even though the exercises were challenging, he never complained. Instead, he asked intelligent questions about each movement and its purpose. During their breaks, he told her about his work as a software engineer and how he was still managing to work from his hospital room. "My company has been incredibly supportive," he explained while doing his arm strengthening exercises. "They set up my entire workstation here. I'm actually developing a program to help people with disabilities navigate everyday technology better." Jasmine found herself fascinated by his passion. Unlike many of her previous patients, Marcus didn't see his condition as the end of his life, but rather as a new challenge to overcome. When he talked about his projects, his eyes lit up with excitement, and his hands moved animatedly as he explained complex coding concepts in simple terms. The session went by quickly, and before they knew it, their hour was up. As Jasmine helped Marcus position himself more comfortably in his wheelchair, she noticed a small Captain America pin on his hospital gown. "You're a Marvel fan?" she asked, pointing to the pin. Marcus's face broke into an even bigger smile. "Huge fan. I've been since I was a kid. There's something inspiring about ordinary people becoming extraordinary, you know." "I do," Jasmine replied, thinking about how this man in front of her was proving to be quite extraordinary himself. As she prepared to leave, Marcus called out, "Same time Wednesday?" "Same time Wednesday," she confirmed, trying to ignore the small flutter in her stomach. Walking back to her office, Jasmine couldn't stop thinking about Marcus. There was something special about him that went beyond his physical condition. His positive attitude, intelligence, and warm personality had left a lasting impression on her. That evening, as she drove home through the busy Chicago streets, Jasmine realized she was actually looking forward to Wednesday's session. She quickly pushed away the thought, reminding herself of her professional ethics and boundaries. Still, she couldn't help but smile when she remembered his joke about the pigeons. Little did Jasmine know that this ordinary Monday morning had just set in motion a series of events that would change her life forever. Sometimes, the biggest adventures begin in the most unexpected places, and for Jasmine Bennett, it began in room 305 of Chicago General Hospital. 3 months had passed since Jasmine first met Marcus at Chicago General Hospital. The autumn leaves were falling outside the hospital windows as she made her way to their regular therapy session, but today felt different. Something had changed between them over the past weeks. During their sessions, Marcus had become more than just another patient. His progress was remarkable, not just in his physical therapy, but in the way he brought light into every room he entered. The hospital staff often found excuses to pass by during their sessions, drawn by their shared laughter and positive energy. One afternoon, after finishing their exercises, Marcus cleared his throat nervously. "Jasmine, I know this might be crossing a line, but would you like to get coffee sometime? Outside the hospital, I mean," he quickly added, My treatment with you ends next week, so it wouldn't be against any rules. Jasmine felt her heart skip a beat. She had been fighting her growing feelings for Marcus, trying to keep things professional. I'd like that, she replied with a smile she couldn't hide. However, when Jasmine told her family about having coffee with Marcus, their reactions weren't what she had hoped for. Her mother, Linda, dropped the spoon she was holding during Sunday dinner. A man in a wheelchair? Linda asked, her voice filled with concern. Baby, are you sure about this? Life will be so hard. What about having children? What about traveling? Dancing at your wedding? Jasmine felt anger rising in her chest. Mama, Marcus is more than his wheelchair. He's brilliant, kind, and makes me laugh like no one else can. Her younger sister, Tanya, jumped in. But sis, what will people say? You're such a beautiful woman. You could have any man you want. I don't care what people say, Jasmine replied firmly, pushing her chair back from the dinner table. Marcus understands me in ways nobody else has. When we talk, hours feel like minutes. He challenges me to think differently and be better. That night, as Jasmine lay in bed, her phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Still thinking about that joke you told today about the physical therapist and the gymnast. Can't wait for coffee tomorrow. Their first coffee date at a small cafe near the hospital turned into 3 hours of conversation. Marcus told her about growing up in Detroit, his love for designing software, and his dreams of creating technology that could help others with disabilities. You know, he said, stirring his second cup of coffee, some people look at me and only see limitations. But this chair? It's just part of my journey, not my whole story. Jasmine reached across the table and squeezed his hand. I see you, Marcus. All of you. But Marcus had his own fears too. Later that evening, as they sat in the park watching the sunset, he confessed, sometimes I worry that I can't give you the life you deserve. You could be with someone who could dance with you, run with you. Jasmine turned to face him, her eyes serious. Marcus Thompson, you give me something much more valuable. You give me joy, understanding, and a connection I've never felt before. I don't need someone to run with me. I need someone who walks through life beside me, no matter how that happens. Their relationship grew stronger despite the whispers and stares they got in public. Jasmine learned to ignore the pitying looks from strangers and the well-meaning but hurtful comments from friends. She fell in love with Marcus's mind, his determination, and his heart. One evening, while they were watching movies at Marcus's apartment, he surprised her by ordering from the same Ethiopian restaurant where she used to eat with her grandmother. He had remembered her mentioning it once, weeks ago. How did you even know about this place? She asked, touched by his thoughtfulness. I pay attention to the things that matter to you, he replied simply. Just like you pay attention to the things that matter to me. As they sat there, sharing gingerbread and trading stories, Jasmine realized something profound. Love wasn't about what a person could or couldn't do physically. It was about how they made you feel, how they enriched your life, and how they helped you grow. The world outside might not understand their love story yet, but Jasmine and Marcus were writing it their own way, one day at a time, proving that the heart sees no limitations when it finds its true match. 6 months into their relationship, Jasmine and Marcus had fallen into a comfortable routine. Every Wednesday evening, they would meet at their favorite coffee shop, the Bean Corner, where the owner, Mrs. Chen, always saved them the corner table near the window. Tonight was different, though. Marcus had something special planned. I want to show you my workplace, Marcus said, his eyes twinkling with excitement. My team has been working on something amazing, and you're the first person I want to share it with. Jasmine felt honored. Though Marcus often talked about his work as a software engineer, he had never invited anyone to see his projects before. The next day, she drove them to the modern glass building where he worked at Tech Solutions Incorporated. As they entered the building, Jasmine noticed how everyone greeted Marcus with genuine warmth. His wheelchair wasn't an obstacle here. The entire office was perfectly accessible, with wide doorways and adjustable desks. She could tell this was a place where Marcus truly belonged. Welcome to my world, Marcus said proudly, leading her to his workspace. His computer setup was impressive, with 3 large screens and special equipment that made it easier for him to work long hours comfortably. Watch this, he said, typing quickly on his keyboard. On the screen, a program came to life. This is what I've been working on for the past year. It's an app that helps people with disabilities navigate public spaces more easily. It shows accessible routes, rates buildings for accessibility, and even connects users with nearby helpers if needed. Jasmine watched in amazement as Marcus demonstrated the app. His eyes lit up as he explained each feature, his passion evident in every word. This wasn't just a job for him. It was his way of making the world better for others like him. "Marcus, this is incredible," she said, genuinely impressed. "You're going to help so many people with this." He smiled sheepishly. "That's not all. Come with me to the testing room." In the next room, Marcus showed her how the app worked with various assistive devices. He had thought of everything: voice commands for those who couldn't use their hands, eye-tracking technology for those who couldn't speak, and simplified interfaces for those with cognitive disabilities. "You know," he said softly, "before my accident, I was just another programmer making regular apps. But now, I understand what people really need. Sometimes life's biggest challenges lead us to our true purpose." Jasmine felt tears forming in her eyes. This was the man she had fallen in love with, someone who turned his own struggles into hope for others. Later that evening, they ordered takeout and ate in Marcus's office while watching the sunset through the large windows. Marcus shared stories about his colleagues and the funny things that happened at work. "Last week," he chuckled, "our intern accidentally set off all the voice-activated devices at once. It was like a robot tour in here." As they laughed together, one of Marcus's coworkers, Sarah, stopped by. She smiled warmly at Jasmine. "So you're the famous Jasmine. Marcus never stops talking about you. Before you came along, all he did was work. Now he actually takes lunch breaks and smiles all the time." Marcus blushed, but Jasmine could see the truth in Sarah's words. She had noticed how he had begun to open up more, to dream bigger, to laugh more freely. On their drive home, Marcus was quieter than usual. Finally, he spoke. "Jasmine, I need to tell you something." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "Before I met you, I was focused only on work because I thought that's all I had left. I didn't think anyone could see past this wheelchair. But you saw me, really saw me. You make me feel whole in a way I never thought possible again." Jasmine pulled the car over, turned to Marcus, and took his hand. "You do the same for me, Marcus. You showed me what real strength looks like, what real love feels like." Under the glow of the streetlights, they shared a tender kiss. Neither of them knew that soon their love would be tested in ways they couldn't imagine. But for now, in this moment, they were just two people deeply in love, sharing dreams and planning a future together. The wheelchair between them wasn't a barrier. It was just part of their unique love story, a story that was getting more beautiful with each passing day. Spring had arrived in Chicago, bringing with it warm breezes and blooming flowers. Marcus had been acting strangely for the past 2 weeks, taking mysterious phone calls and having secret meetings that he wouldn't tell Jasmine about. She tried not to worry, trusting that whatever it was, he would share it with her when he was ready. One Saturday morning, Marcus called Jasmine with an unusual request. "Can you meet me at the Chicago Botanical Gardens at 6 p.m.? We're something nice." His voice sounded nervous, which wasn't like him at all. "Is everything okay?" Jasmine asked, concerned. "Everything's perfect," he replied quickly. "Just trust me on this one." Throughout the day, Jasmine felt butterflies in her stomach. She chose a flowing yellow dress that Marcus once said made her look like sunshine. As she drove to the gardens, she kept wondering what he had planned. When she arrived, she found Marcus waiting at the entrance in a crisp black suit, looking more handsome than ever in his wheelchair. He had even gotten a fresh haircut, and his smile was brighter than usual. "You look beautiful," he said softly, taking her hand. "Come with me." As they moved through the gardens, Jasmine noticed something odd. The usually busy paths were empty. String lights had been hung in the trees, twinkling like stars. The air was filled with the sweet sound of jazz music playing somewhere nearby. Marcus led her to the Rose Garden, where a small jazz band was playing her favorite song, "At Last" by Etta James. Rose petals were scattered along the path, and candles flickered in glass jars all around them. "Marcus," Jasmine whispered, her heart beginning to race. "What is all this?" He positioned his wheelchair to face her and took both her hands in his. His own hands were trembling slightly. "Jasmine Bennett," he began, his voice full of emotion. "When I had my accident, I thought my life was over. I thought my dreams of finding true love were gone forever. But then you walked into room 305 and everything changed. Tears began to form in Jasmine's eyes as Marcus continued. You never saw my wheelchair as a barrier. You saw me for who I am. You laughed at my terrible jokes, challenged me to be better, and showed me that love has no limitations. With you, I'm not a disabled man. I'm just a man who loves an incredible woman. Marcus reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. With slightly shaking hands, he opened it to reveal a beautiful diamond ring that sparkled in the evening light. I may not be able to get down on one knee, he said with a small laugh, but my heart kneels before you every day. Jasmine Bennett, will you marry me? Jasmine felt tears rolling down her cheeks. In that moment, she saw their entire relationship flash before her eyes. Their first meeting, their coffee dates, the family dinners, the movie nights, the challenges they'd overcome together. Yes, she said through happy tears. Yes, Marcus Thompson, I will marry you. As Marcus slipped the ring onto her finger, the jazz band began playing again, and suddenly people emerged from hiding spots around the garden, their families, friends, and even Mrs. Chen from the coffee shop. They had all been there to witness this beautiful moment. Jasmine's mother, who had been so worried at first about her dating Marcus, was crying tears of joy. She rushed forward to hug them both. I was wrong, she whispered to Marcus. You're exactly what my daughter needs. Marcus's parents were there too, his father proudly filming everything on his phone while his mother dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief. The garden was filled with congratulations, hugs, and well wishes. Someone opened champagne, and glasses were passed around. The jazz band played cheerful love songs as everyone celebrated. Later that evening, as they sat together under the twinkling lights, Marcus said, I have one more surprise for you, but that will have to wait for our wedding night. Jasmine squeezed his hand, the new ring sparkling on her finger. I don't need any more surprises. You're all I need. Little did she know that Marcus had been keeping a secret that would make their wedding night even more magical than she could imagine. But for now, they simply enjoyed their special moment, surrounded by love, acceptance, and the promise of a beautiful future together. The months following their engagement were filled with busy wedding preparations and an increasing sense of mystery. Jasmine noticed that Marcus was spending more time at doctor's appointments than usual, but whenever she asked about them, he would smile and say, just routine checkups, honey. One sunny Tuesday afternoon, while visiting wedding venues, Jasmine caught Marcus whispering on the phone in the garden. Yes, Dr. Richards, I understand the risks, she heard him say. But I want to try. It has to be perfect for the wedding night. When he saw her approaching, he quickly ended the call. Everything okay? Jasmine asked, trying to hide her worry. Never better, Marcus replied with a bright smile. Just handling some surprise wedding details. He quickly changed the subject to the beautiful garden venue they were visiting. Their wedding planning continued, but small mysterious events kept happening. Marcus's physical therapist, Dr. Martinez, would give Jasmine knowing looks during chance encounters at the hospital. Once, Jasmine overheard two nurses talking. That's her, the one marrying Marcus Thompson. Wait until she sees what he's been working on. One evening, while looking through Marcus's desk for a pen, Jasmine accidentally knocked over a folder. Papers scattered across the floor, revealing medical documents and what looked like diagrams of some kind of mechanical equipment. Before she could read them properly, Marcus wheeled in quickly. Let me help you with those, he said, gathering the papers faster than she'd ever seen him move. His usual calmness was replaced with nervous energy. Marcus, Jasmine said gently, placing her hand on his shoulder. You know you can tell me anything, right? Are you sick? Is something wrong? Marcus took her hand and kissed it softly. I promise you, nothing is wrong. Everything is more right than it's ever been. Just trust me for a little while longer. Looking into his honest brown eyes, Jasmine nodded. Still, she couldn't help but worry. Their families noticed the mysterious behavior too. During a wedding dress fitting, Jasmine's mother voiced her concerns. Baby, are you sure everything's okay with Marcus? He seems different lately. I think he's planning something, Mama, Jasmine replied, adjusting her beautiful white gown in the mirror. I just don't know what. Marcus's strange behavior continued. He started having private sessions with a new physical therapist after hours. Twice a week, he would go to a medical center across town, refusing to let Jasmine drive him there as she usually did. One day, Jasmine brought lunch to his office and found him practicing standing exercises behind closed doors with some kind of special equipment. He quickly sat back in his wheelchair when she entered, but she had seen enough to make her heart race. That night, she couldn't sleep. Could Marcus be getting better? Was there some new treatment he was trying? She didn't want to get her hopes up. She loved him exactly as he was. Still, she couldn't help but wonder. 2 weeks before the wedding, Marcus's mother pulled Jasmine aside during the cake tasting. "Sweetheart," Mrs. Thompson said, her eyes twinkling, "I know you're worried about all Marcus's secretive behavior. But trust me, what that boy has planned." She stopped herself, covering her mouth. "Oh dear, I've said too much already." Despite all the mysteries, wedding preparations moved forward. They chose a beautiful ballroom at the Grand Hotel Chicago for their reception. Marcus insisted on having a special dance floor installed, though he wouldn't explain why. Jasmine threw herself into the final details: flowers, music, seating arrangements. Every time she felt worried about Marcus's secrets, she reminded herself of the love and trust they shared. The night before their wedding rehearsal, Marcus held Jasmine close as they sat in their favorite spot in his apartment, watching the city lights twinkle. "Tomorrow at this time, we'll be almost married," he said softly. "Are you ready for the biggest surprise of your life?" Jasmine looked into his eyes, seeing them filled with love and excitement. "As long as I'm with you, I'm ready for anything." Little did she know, Marcus had spent the past 6 months preparing a moment that would take her breath away. Surprise that would make their wedding night unforgettable in ways she couldn't imagine. The morning of the wedding arrived with perfect weather, sunny skies and a gentle breeze. The Grand Hotel Chicago was buzzing with activity as wedding coordinators, florists, and family members rushed around making final preparations. In the bridal suite, Jasmine sat in front of a large mirror while her sister Tanya carefully arranged her veil. Her wedding dress was stunning, an elegant white gown with delicate lace details that flowed beautifully around her. Her mother stood nearby, wiping tears from her eyes. "Baby girl," her mother said, voice shaking with emotion, "you look like an angel. I was so wrong about Marcus. The way that man loves you. It's what every mother dreams of for her daughter." Meanwhile, in the groom's room, Marcus was getting ready with help from his father and best man, James. He seemed unusually calm for a groom, though his eyes kept darting to a mysterious black bag in the corner of the room. "Son," his father said, adjusting Marcus's bow tie, "whatever you've got planned today, just remember, you've already won her heart. Everything else is just extra." Marcus smiled, touching the small remote control hidden in his jacket pocket. "I know, Dad, but this is going to be a moment no one will ever forget." The ceremony was set to begin at 2 p.m. The hotel's grand ballroom had been transformed into a romantic paradise with white roses, twinkling lights, and soft fabric draped from the ceiling. 200 guests filled the seats, all wondering about the rumors they'd heard about a special surprise planned for later. As the music began, Marcus wheeled himself down the aisle, looking handsome in his black tuxedo. He positioned himself at the altar, his heart pounding with anticipation, not just for seeing his bride, but for what would come later. Then the wedding march began to play. The doors opened, and Jasmine appeared on her father's arm. The entire room gasped. She was breathtaking. Her white dress seemed to float around her as she walked, and her smile lit up the entire room. Marcus felt tears forming in his eyes. Even after all their time together, her beauty still took his breath away. As she walked closer, he could see happy tears in her eyes too. When Jasmine reached the altar, her father kissed her cheek and placed her hand in Marcus's. The priest began the ceremony, but the couple barely heard his words. They were lost in each other's eyes. "The couple has written their own vows," the priest announced. "Marcus, you may begin." Marcus took a deep breath. "Jasmine, when I first met you, I was a man who thought his life was limited. But you showed me that love has no limitations. You never saw my wheelchair. You saw me. You saw my heart, my dreams, my soul. Today, I promise to love you without limits, to support your dreams, and to thank God every day for bringing you into my life." Jasmine wiped away tears as she began her vows. "Marcus, you taught me what true strength looks like. Your heart, your mind, and your spirit amaze me every day. People say I helped you heal, but the truth is, your love made me a better person. I promise to stand by your side always, to face whatever life brings us together, and to love you more each day than the day before." The exchange of rings was beautiful, with Marcus's hand steady as he slipped the gold band onto Jasmine's finger. When the priest pronounced them husband and wife, their kiss was met with thunderous applause. As they turned to face their guests, Marcus squeezed Jasmine's hand. "Ready for the reception?" he asked with a mysterious smile. "Ready for anything with you," she replied, not knowing that in just a few hours she would witness something that would make their perfect day even more magical. They made their way back down the aisle together, Jasmine walking beside Marcus's wheelchair, both of them beaming with joy. Their guests threw rose petals, creating a shower of pink and white around them. As they reached the doors, Marcus glanced at his watch. Just a few more hours until his big surprise. He had practiced for months in secret, endured pain and setbacks, all for this one special moment that would come during their first dance. But for now, they were simply Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, ready to celebrate their love with family and friends, their hearts full of joy and anticipation for what was to come. After their beautiful wedding reception, Marcus and Jasmine made their way to the honeymoon suite at the Grand Hotel Chicago. The room was stunning, with rose petals scattered on the floor and soft music playing in the background. Through the large windows, the city lights twinkled like stars. "Wait here for just 5 minutes," Marcus said as soon as they entered the suite. He wheeled himself into the bathroom, taking the mysterious black bag that his best man had secretly brought up earlier. And no peeking. Jasmine sat on the edge of the luxurious king-size bed, her heart beating fast. She was still in her wedding dress, though she had removed her veil. The day had been perfect, the ceremony, their vows, the reception. But Marcus's mysterious behavior had continued throughout the evening. Inside the bathroom, Marcus's hands shook slightly as he opened the black bag. Inside were the special braces he had been secretly practicing with for months. Dr. Richards and his team had designed them specifically for this moment. Marcus had spent countless hours in physical therapy, building his strength, falling and getting back up, all to surprise his bride. "Are you okay in there?" Jasmine called out, concerned by the long silence. "Just a minute more, love," Marcus replied, his voice steady despite his nervousness. He finished strapping on the advanced medical braces that ran from his hips to his feet. They were hidden perfectly under his wedding pants. Meanwhile, Jasmine noticed an envelope on the bedside table with her name on it. Inside was a note in Marcus's handwriting. "My dear wife, sometimes love gives us the strength to do impossible things. You gave me that strength. Turn around when I tell you to, and remember, this is just the beginning of our miracle." Jasmine felt tears forming in her eyes as she read the note. Before she could wonder what it meant, she heard the bathroom door open. "Close your eyes," Marcus called out softly. Jasmine obeyed, her heart pounding. She could hear some movement, what sounded like Marcus's wheelchair, and then silence. "Okay," Marcus said, his voice coming from a different position than usual. "Open your eyes and turn around." Jasmine opened her eyes and slowly turned. What she saw made her gasp and cover her mouth with her hands. There was Marcus, standing on his feet, supported by nearly invisible braces, tears of joy running down his face. "Oh my God," Jasmine whispered, her own tears falling freely. "Marcus, you're standing." With some help from modern medicine and months of secret physical therapy, he said, his voice shaking with emotion. "I wanted to give you this moment. I know you love me exactly as I am, but I wanted our first dance as husband and wife to be standing up." Jasmine rushed to him, touching his face to make sure this was real. "How? When? All those secret appointments?" Marcus smiled, taking her hands in his. "I found a new experimental treatment program. The doctors weren't sure it would work, but I had to try. I've been practicing standing and even taking a few steps for months. I can only do it for short periods, and I'll still need my wheelchair most of the time, but—" He paused, pressing a button on a small remote. Their wedding song, "At Last" by Etta James, began playing softly through the room's speakers. "May I have this dance, Mrs. Thompson?" he asked, pulling her close. They swayed together, Jasmine's head resting on his chest, both of them crying happy tears. It wasn't a perfect dance. Marcus's movements were limited, and they mostly just swayed in place, but to them, it was the most beautiful dance in the world. "That's why you insisted on installing that special dance floor at the reception," Jasmine realized. "You were planning to surprise me there?" Marcus chuckled. "That was the original plan, but I wanted this moment to be just for us. No cameras, no audience, just you and me." They continued their gentle dance, lost in their own world. Marcus might not be able to walk normally, but in this moment, they were floating on air. His dedication to giving her this surprise showed just how deep his love ran. "I love you so much," Jasmine whispered, looking up at her husband's face. "Not because you can stand, but because you never stop trying to make our dreams come true." Marcus kissed her softly. "With you by my side, anything is possible." As they danced in their honeymoon suite, high above the city lights, both knew that this was just the beginning of their incredible journey together, a journey where love truly had no limitations. 6 months after their magical wedding night, Jasmine and Marcus Thompson had settled into a beautiful rhythm of married life. Their story had become an inspiration in their community, but their real happiness was in the small, everyday moments they shared together. One sunny morning, as they sat having breakfast in their new accessible apartment with its stunning view of Lake Michigan, Marcus had exciting news to share. "Guess what?" he said, his eyes sparkling with excitement. "The app we developed at work, it just got approved for a nationwide launch. Hospitals across the country want to use it to help their patients with disabilities." Jasmine jumped up from her chair to hug him. She knew how hard he had worked on this project. "That's amazing. We need to celebrate." Marcus smiled, pulling out an envelope from his jacket. "Actually, I have something else to tell you. Remember Dr. Richards? He's invited me to be part of a new medical trial. They're developing even better mobility assistance technology. Are you interested?" Jasmine asked carefully. She supported his dreams but didn't want him feeling pressured to change. "I want to try," Marcus replied thoughtfully. "Not because I need to walk to be happy. You taught me that I'm perfect as I am. But if I can help develop technology that might help others like me, I want to do it." Their life had found a beautiful balance. Marcus still used his wheelchair most of the time, but 3 times a week, he would practice standing and taking small steps with his braces. Jasmine was always there, supporting him both physically and emotionally. One evening, while they were hosting a dinner party, their friends watched in amazement as Marcus stood up briefly to propose a toast. Mrs. Chen from the coffee shop, who had become a close friend, wiped tears from her eyes. "You two give people hope," she said softly. "Not just about love, but about what's possible when you believe in each other." Their families had also grown closer. Jasmine's mother, who had once been so worried about their relationship, now spent Sunday afternoons cooking with Marcus, teaching him old family recipes as he sat in his wheelchair by the stove. Marcus's parents had transformed their house to be fully accessible, ensuring their weekly family dinners could continue comfortably. His father often joked that Jasmine was the daughter he'd always wanted. One day, while they were visiting the hospital where they first met, they ran into a young man who had recently lost the use of his legs in an accident. The man was depressed, feeling his life was over. Marcus wheeled over to talk to him while Jasmine watched from a distance. "See that beautiful woman over there?" Marcus said to the young man. "She's my wife. When I thought my life was limited to this chair, she showed me it was just beginning. Your story isn't over. It's just taking a different path than you planned." Later that night, they decided to start a support group for couples where one partner had a disability. They wanted to show others what they had learned, that love had no boundaries, no limitations. Their first meeting was held in the same coffee shop where they had their first date. 5 couples showed up, each with their own unique story. By the end of the evening, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. "You know what makes me happiest?" Jasmine said as they drove home that night. "It's not the moments when you stand up. It's moments like these, when we can help others find their way." Marcus reached over and squeezed her hand. "Speaking of helping others, what would you think about starting a family?" Jasmine's eyes lit up. They had discussed this before, but now it felt like the right time. "Really? Are you ready?" "With you by my side, I'm ready for anything," Marcus replied. "We'll figure it out together, just like we figured everything else out." As they looked out over the city from their balcony that evening, both thought about how far they had come. Their love story wasn't about a miracle cure or overcoming disability. It was about 2 people who saw past society's limitations to find something real and beautiful. Marcus might not walk perfectly, but he had learned to dance with life in his own way. And Jasmine had learned that sometimes the most beautiful love stories don't follow the usual path. Together, they had written their own definition of a perfect ending, one where love, understanding, and acceptance created something far more valuable than any physical ability could provide. Their story had become a beacon of hope for others, proving that true love sees with the heart, not with the eyes, and their journey was just beginning.